Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Jessica Ferguson, and I'm with the New Brunswick Adoption Foundation. Today's conversation is one I'm especially looking forward to because it brings forward a perspective that we don't always hear enough of, but one that is so important to truly understanding care and permanency. I'm really honored to be joined by Jazmyne McLaughlin, who grew up in foster care and has recently created a book to help young people better understand their rights while in care. Jazmyne brings not only lived experience, but a powerful voice for change, helping us move beyond politics and systems and into what it actually feels like to navigate care as a young person. Whether you're a caregiver or a professional, or someone who simply wants to understand more, I think this conversation will offer meaningful insight and reflection for all of us. So thank you for being here, and we're going to dive in.
Thanks for
So,
having
Jazmyne,
me.
no problem. Can you share a bit about your experience growing up in care and what led you to create this book?
So I think my experience is very unique in the sense that I spent time in and out of care. I was placed into foster care in BC when I was very young. I couldn't even tell you how old I was. And then I was adopted and brought to Fredericton. And then I stayed with my adopted family for some years until I was around 15, and then I was placed back in care. And then I signed myself out when I was 16. So I spent 4 or 5 months in the care system in Fredericton, New Brunswick. And that's kind of the one that I play off most of my experiences from because obviously I was a lot older. I could understand right from wrong. Um, so yeah, it's a bit unique in the sense that I didn't stay my entire childhood. Um, but the time that I did spend in the system itself was not the best. It was definitely a shock to the system. I think while my upbringing was tumultuous, nonetheless, it was very confusing being in a place where you know nobody. You're living in a house with a bunch of strangers. Like it was just a random day. I woke up, I went to a meeting, and then I left the meeting on a stretcher and I was told that I wasn't going home. So I think that day was a very traumatizing day in and of itself. But when you take a kid away from their normal everyday to day life and then you put them in a home with people they don't know, with staff that are on 8-hour shifts, it completely rocks their world. So I had come out of care when I was 16, and then I was kind of bouncing around, and then I ended up living alone later on, like right before I turned 17. But when I was in my second year of my undergrad, I took a child and youth advocacy or child and youth rights course with when I was at STU, and the teacher was the child and youth advocate at the time, the New Brunswick child and youth advocate, Gavin Coates. And I was like, wow, this guy's pretty cool. I wish I knew he existed when I was in care. And it felt like a kind of out of body experience when I'm hearing this man talk about all these facets of my life, and everyone around me in class is learning about all these things that I've lived through. So I found that kind of crazy. And then around 2 years later, when I was in my fourth year, Kelly Lamrock, who's the current youth advocate, who I've known since I was like 7. I've known Kelly for a long time. He was one of my basketball coaches, and I know his daughter. We grew up together. Kelly was one of my profs, and I had gone up to him, and I was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do for classes because I took everything under the sun already, and I proposed doing an internship with the office. And when I did that internship, I had gone to his office one day and I was like, listen, youth need to know their rights. Um, I spent so much time when I was in care not knowing right from wrong when it came to how I should have been treated. And I'm now a little bit older and I'm realizing all the things that were wrong. And I want to make sure that another kid doesn't have to wait until they're older to realize all the things that shouldn't have happened to them. And Kelly was like, amazing. Let's do it. I'll give you all the resources. You put it together and it'll be done. And we did just that. So that's the long story short of my life and in the book. But
I love
yeah.
that. And I love how you had such great role models to be able to help you put that forward and to be able to make it into play. Um, we've had great interactions with both those gentlemen as well. Yeah. great advocates for our youth.
Yes, they are.
So, can you just tell me, for people who haven't experienced the system firsthand, what do you think they often misunderstand about what it's actually like to grow up in care?
I don't think people truly understand, like, the levels to growing up in care. Everyone if you do know it, you think that growing up in care means that, you're put in some home, the government's your parent, and then you get everything paid for the rest of your life. When in reality, it's nothing like that. People often also assume that being in care, like, automatically means you're safe and you're supported, but that has not been my experience or the experiences of a lot of children I've worked with and a lot of people that I've come in contact with over the years. There's a lot of instability, a lot of lack of control, and a lot of uncertainty for young people that live within the system, and that shapes everything from trust to decision making. And it's not just about where you live, it's about, like, constantly adapting, never knowing when you're gonna move again, never knowing if your social worker is gonna reply to you for the thing that you need. So yeah, a lot of youth don't feel heard, and you have to learn to navigate these systems well before you should have to. It's a lot of difficult things that you have to navigate, and you often feel like there's no one there to help you, even though there's people in positions that are supposed to help you. But it's all about, if you can advocate for yourself adequately or not. And if you can't, then unfortunately you will more often than not slip through the cracks. So that's the system I've come to know, and a lot of other youth who have lived within it.
We know that advocating is hard work, right?
Yeah.
Like I know from our experience working with our caregivers that it's exhausting and hard for them to advocate for the kids. I can't
Mhm.
even imagine what it's like for a youth to have to do all of that and maneuver the systems. So I can definitely understand why that would be exhausting and overwhelming. Yeah.
Great words. Absolutely. Echo those.
So thinking back on your experience, what made the biggest difference, either positively or negatively, in how supported you felt while you were in care?
I think this spans back to even before I was put in care. Like, home life wasn't really living it up. Um, there was a lot of instability within my home life, and then when I was put in care, um, I had a lot of people pre being in care that were still very much in my corner. I give it all to my community, and when I say community, I mean, like, my sports community, my school community. I have always said that sports in school is what kept me afloat. And I mean that with my entire heart. It was my life jacket through all of this. I was very lucky to be put into sports by my adoptive family. I don't know where my life would be without them. The people saved me, the sport itself saved me. School was like my hyperfixation, and I knew it was also my ticket to success and going to university if I did well and I kept my grades up. And so that was always at the forefront of my mind. My teachers were very, very, very supportive, namely Nathan Langell, who was one of my principals in high school who helped me get through so much. I'd known him since I was 11. He was, again, one of my former soccer coaches. I grew up with his daughter. He was the principal, helped me make some really tough decisions. Mally Coulombe, when I was in seventh grade, um, we got really close, and then ultimately she took me in when I was put in a group home. When I signed out, I went to go live with her. Yeah, I've got a lot of really, really great people that helped keep me afloat in these times. And I think that's what makes my story a lot different from a lot of the kids in my situation. Um, a lot of people don't have that community. A lot of people don't have that support. And I was very, very lucky to be able to lean on these people. That's not to say that I also didn't work very hard, because I did, but these people were there when I didn't think I could do it, and they were whispering in my ear, "You've got this, keep going." So I really do think that that's a big make or break for a lot of youth. And yeah, I really felt supported by those people throughout those times. So shout out to all of them.
It really does speak to that saying that we hear often, that it really takes one supportive adult in a child and youth's life to make a difference.
Yes.
And look at
They
how many
meant
you
that.
had. That's wonderful.
Mhm.
Truly, I'm glad that you had those people.
Yeah, me too.
What does it look like in real life when a young person is in care, is truly heard and included in decisions about their life? So we know what it looks like on paper in our policies
Yeah.
and procedures. What about in real life?
I actually had a lot of, difficulty prepping for this question because I was like, "What does it look like tangibly?" Um, so I literally wrote a blurb, and I'm gonna read it word for word, bar for bar, because I do not want to miss what my brain cooked up. Um, I wrote, "In real life, a young person in care being truly heard looks like more than just being asked about their opinion. It means they're given information in a way that they can understand. Their preferences are taken seriously, and their decisions are explained to them, not just around them. It also looks like consistency, where the same adults follow through, build trust, and create space for the young person to speak honestly without fear or consequences. And most importantly, it shows up in outcomes. When a young person can see that what they said actually influenced the decision, even if it wasn't followed exactly. And I think that was a big thing with me. Um, I had to fight so hard to have my voice heard throughout processes. And still to this day, I'm 24 and I am still fighting with the government for, things that I have the right to have. And it takes months of emails back and forth. It takes so many um, phone calls and things of that nature with, and I don't see any outcomes. So I find it very troublesome for um, when it comes to youth who, even if they muster up the courage to speak up and then they're hit with a no when it should be a yes, um, that's very difficult to watch, when it should, like, youth should be heard, um, and they should be listened to, and their voice should be taken into account, specifically in situations that involve literally the trajectory of their life. And one thing that I've always said is throughout my um, time in and out of care, it felt like I was a pawn on a board game, and I was just being moved around wherever people wanted me to, and then I wasn't told until after the fact, which feels incredibly alienating. So, yeah, I hope that all of those things come into fruition for youth. I think, yeah, having their voice heard and then watching outcomes actually happen, and it's not just empty words. And I'm sorry you had to fight so hard for this when that's just how the system's set up. So, yeah.
I really loved how you used the term keeping space for their voice, building that trust and keeping that space. I think that that is a very important piece that we truly try to stress with our caregivers and professionals that, you know, our our youth might not always have the answer of what life should look like. They shouldn't have that answer. Most children, youth don't and shouldn't. Um, but their contribution and allowing that space to be had so that they can contribute to what that could look like or what they would hope it would look like, and then help you as the adult help them
Mhm.
formulate that into a way that it could work,
Yeah,
right?
and I think holding space, meeting them where they're at too. A lot of these youth, like I work currently with youth in care, and people often forget, like, yeah, these are teenagers. They're not going to be easy peasy lemon squeezy. No one was easy peasy lemon squeezy as a teenager, whether you lived in care or not. Like, and most of these kids have lived through such traumatizing pasts. And if we can't remove ourselves and just meet them where they're at and, have trauma informed care, then you're doing more harm than foul. So I think it's, yeah, reminding these adults again, they also get to go home at the end of their 8-hour shift, or when you're done, your 9 to 5. But these kids, like, this is their life, this is their pattern. They are forced into a system that, like, without any agency of their own. So, yeah, I think youth voice, meeting them where they're at, remembering those things, and that can go very far in forming relationships with youth. So, yeah.
Yeah. I also liked how you said that it was important to explain everything at a level that they understand. And we
Hmm.
know that every child, every youth, every person, every human processes and learns differently. And so to really have that connection with them before explaining something and expecting that they are processing and understanding it the way you're explaining it. So I think that that is key too.
Hmm.
Yeah. So this one kind of ties in nicely then. So for caregivers and professionals listening, what are some practical ways that they can build trust and connection with youth in care?
I think, yeah, being a safe space. A lot of the work that I do with youth in care, I feel like I have a foot in the door because I've also lived in care. So all I have to do is let them like I've been there. Like when I say I get it, they know that I get it. Um, and that's not something that everyone has the benefit of, but for those who do not have the benefit of having that um, lived experience, I think like getting down on their level, treating them like humans and not like, yes, of course, as the adult, you're going to have authority and all these things, but a lot of these youth have not good experiences with people in authority. And I think if you can get on their level, understand where they're coming from, treat them with respect and kindness, that'll go a really long way. I think it's also very important to like keep reinforcing your belief in them. A lot of kids don't hear I'm proud of you. A lot of kids don't hear I love you, those who live in the system, because it's like you're not in your regular, family home and people are tossing around I love you in every sentence. But I make sure to tell the kids I work with every day that I work with them, that I am proud of them. And I will always say I love you when I leave. And yeah, I think that goes a long way. Just you're human, they're human. It's everyone's first time living on this earth. So I think those are very important things. And those are things that helped me. I found that when I was in care, it felt very much like robotic. They couldn't hug you. They couldn't like say these things. And I was like, okay, so where's the human connection, guys? Come get me. I'm scared. But yeah, I make sure to do that with the kids that I work with and they appreciate it. And I write them letters again, saying that I'm proud of them because that's not something they hear often, especially in a system that is always trying to like reinforce that these kids are the problem. And that's rarely ever the case. A kid being placed in care because they are the problem. So
Right.
they may come
Yes.
from a problematic past that has nothing to do with them, but they're not the problem. So yeah, speaking life into them is what I would call it.
And we know the science of the power of touch, and our kids in care are probably the kids who, are the least touched in a way that's appropriate and comforting and right. So I think that you really nailed that on the head too about the feeling proud and all of those things that children who are living in a home of their permanency
Mm-hmm.
would often get more than those who are bouncing around. So I think great piece to highlight. Can you tell us a bit about your book and what youth will gain from it?
Okay, so it's a rights-based resource. It has 11 rights, but it's based on the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, which has like 54 articles in it. But who's going to sit down and read 54 pages? Not I. Not I. So I condense the most important ones and the ones that typically end up getting breached when a youth is in care, like the right to safety, the right to a review of their care plan, things of that nature. And I condense them into 11 core rights. And what was really important to me is the first page had a this books belong to, like, and then you write your name on the line. Um, because often a lot of youth who live in the system don't have a lot to their name. And I thought it was very important that they could write their name in this, they could claim it as their own, and it could be carried around with them. Um, so that's how the book starts off. And then there's the 11 core rights, and then there's ways to reach out if you need help at the end. And yeah, I hope that this could be a tool in youth's tool belts to be able to advocate for themselves. whether it helps a youth directly who's reading it in care, or whether there is a youth who is living at home with parents and they read the book with their biological parents, and they read the book, and then they can then download the information that they learn on their peers. That's also a really great route that I had in mind. It could be placed in schools, things of that nature. So I'm just hoping to get the most people reading it so that because knowledge is power in my view, and I think that um, this system, it thrives off the silence of the youth that live within it. And if youth do not know they have rights, then they cannot exercise them and stand up for themselves. And I'm hoping that this book can help combat against that. And yeah, that's a little bit about the book. It's currently um, it's in 4 languages, and it's free because I wanted it to be an accessible resource. It's currently written only for New Brunswick, but it's being expanded across Canada because the first 25 pages are universal rights. So they apply anywhere, but the last 5 pages are New Brunswick specific in terms of getting help. So just keeping that in mind. If you're reading it in another province, then the emails and contacts will be different, but the core rights are the same.
And it should be in every school.
Yes.
I hope for you too that we can make that happen. If someone listening today could change just one thing in how they show up for youth in care, what would you want that to be?
I would want them to take young people seriously the first time that they speak up. It is exhausting, and I mean exhausting, to have to repeat yourself
Mm.
and fight tooth and nail for something so small. And this is as someone who's incredibly adamant. Again, I am 24. I've lived through the system. I am in law school. I have every single tool in my tool belt to be able to advocate for myself. And the fact that I am still to this day trying to advocate for me getting things that I know I have the right to within, government resources as a former youth in care, the fact that I am still fighting tooth and nail to get that is very scary because I know some youth will stop at the first no. Um, I think that people shouldn't wait for their experiences to be repeated. Again, listen to them the first time. We don't want this to happen a second time, whatever they're trying to raise their voices to be heard for. Um, and we don't want to have to do damage control. It should be proactive instead of reactive. And I think that's the issue with the system. It's very reactive. And I think that believing in young people early can change the entire trajectory of their life and what happens next. It, again, only takes one person to believe in you. And I was very, very, very fortunate to have many people that believed in me. And it's really not difficult to be one person that can change someone's entire life. And yeah, it's just about how you show up for them. It doesn't have to be extravagant, but even just telling them that you are proud of them, that they can do it, like that can truly do a 360 on someone's life path. So that's what I would say.
I love that. I absolutely love that.
Mm.
So thank you so much for sharing your experiences and your insights with us today. Conversations like this are so important because they remind us that real change doesn't just come from policies. It comes from listening, understanding, and being willing to do things differently. So I hope everyone listening today is walking away with something to reflect on and maybe even one small change that they can make in how they support the youth in their lives. And thank you, Jazmyne, again for being here and for the work that you're doing. It's truly amazing.
Thanks so much, Jessica. I appreciate you.